Hello and welcome to episode 2 of This Is What Came Out of Me, a podcast about anything and everything, but mostly pop culture from movies, TV, podcasts and YouTube. Each week, or whenever it is that I get to post, I'll talk about things that have grabbed my interest and things that I think that you out there in the ether might be interested in. I'm SierraKiloBravo. Let's get into it. We'll start off this week with podcasts. As I said last time, the nature of my work means I get to listen to many podcasts during the day, and as a result, my subscription list is sitting at around about 50 at the moment. The list I have is diverse. I've got podcasts that cover history, comedy, conspiracies, and news deconstruction. I don't necessarily agree with all the things that are discussed on them, but I believe in listening to and reading a wide range of topics to expand my mind and to understand the people around me. I have my favourites and my must-listens, and I want to talk about some episodes that leapt out and really grabbed my interest since my last post. As I said last week, No Agenda is a twice-weekly podcast that deconstructs the news. On the Sunday show, the first part of the show departed slightly from the usual format. One of the hosts, Adam Curry, is travelling at the moment, and they started with some news clips about some coming changes to the TSA, which timed nicely with Adam's travel and led to an entertaining discussion of his misadventures on his way to Holland and some other travel stories. It took up a good portion of the first part of the show and gave me quite a few chuckles. If you're intimidated by a 3-hour podcast, have a listen to the section at 1 hour 58, where they discuss CNN covering CNN being caught out creating fake news. Note carefully how they pick up on the change in wording from CNN in particular. It's things like this that make me listen to No Agenda. The way they pick up on subtle things, quiet changes from the news outlets, and times when the outlets quote people as saying things that they never said, or they outright lie. On another front, the segment at 2 hours 31, where they discussed the recent ransomware attacks, also gave some fascinating insights as to its effects. It's a great podcast, there's always good stuff in it, and it is, in my opinion, recommended listening. Next up is a new subscription for me called The Curious Cases of Rutherford and Fry. Each week, the hosts investigate weird scientific questions, and in this episode, called Kate Bush's Sonic Weapon, they look into whether or not sound can be used to kill. It's a BBC show, so it's done with a good sense of humour, and the production quality is top-notch, and at 20 minutes, it's a really good length for commuting to work or lunchtime listening. The only downside is that this first episode that I downloaded was the season final, so even though I really enjoyed it, I'm going to have to wait until sometime in September for the next one to come out. On the music front, one of the DJ mixes that I listened to is called Freshly Squeezed. It's a mix of electro swing, jazz, funk, and all sorts of other genres. I'm mentioning it today because there was a track in the latest release that I really want you to listen to. It starts playing at 23 minutes 26 seconds. It's a deep, soulful song with powerful female vocals combined with organs and saxophone, and something about it made it really climb inside my head. I really loved it. I listened to it several times and I really enjoyed it. It's called Too Many Rules by Gemma and the Travellers. Check out the link in the show notes, have a listen, and let me know what you think. The Coverville release for this week touched pretty close to home for me, as they played covers of songs by the Finn Brothers, Crowded House, and Split Enz. What Coverville does is they take a band or musician and then track down a bunch of songs by them that have been covered by other artists. Having that New Zealand connection this week was pretty cool. Another good release from Coverville in recent times was the Talking Heads episode. That's one that I recommend and one that I listened to several times. Also this week, I was pleasantly surprised to have a new release from Inward Empire show up in my feed. The last post from them was back in December, so it's been ages. Inward Empire covers American history, and this new episode is called From Camelot to Abilene, and examines the life of Owen Wister, the author of The Virginian, and looks at the facts and myths of cowboys in the Wild West. It's a well-researched podcast, and the host weaves it all together into an easy-to-listen package. If you're a fan of Dan Carlin's hardcore history, then this might be of interest to you. I want to finish today's podcast section with something that was a real breath of fresh air. This week on The Best Debate in the Universe, they asked the question, are traps gay? To clarify, trap, and I'm making air quotes with my fingers, is internet slang for a man that dresses as a woman, often with the goal of engaging in sex. The guest on the show was a male to female transgender woman, so, to clarify, by definition, not a trap. And what I enjoyed was that the discussion was really frank, open, and honest. These days, in a world of militant identity and gender politics, it was refreshing to hear a group of people just talk completely normally about what is usually a minefield and not have any of the screeching and highly emotional talk that is seen in a lot of discussions like this these days. The discussion also went beyond the base question and covered many areas such as what it means to be bisexual, what intersex is, gender, gay, lesbian, a whole bunch of things. It was a really sane chat that moved away from the podcast's usual debate format and ended up being a very engaging episode. While I have no stake in the debate, I come from a, if you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you, I don't care who you are, let's be excellent to each other mentality. I encourage people to have discussions such as those in this episode, rather than the divisive someone has to win and someone has to lose attitude that's regularly seen. So many good podcasts this week, but let's change direction now to movies. Here are some of the trailers that I watched in the last week or so, and a super brief review of them. Good Time. This looks kind of interesting. On face value, it seems like a family and crime story. It's got a bit of an arty feel, but it's one of those trailers that makes me think it's either going to be an amazing movie or it's going to be utter dog crap. Sometimes they manage to whip up the movie to look completely different in the trailers and make it look arty and fancy, when in actual fact it's not that good. So that'll be one to keep an eye on when it comes out down the track. War for the Planet of the Apes. Can you believe there's now a fourth trailer out for this? You'd think they'd just released a damn film by now. This series is not my cup of tea. I don't really like movies that are heavy with CGI. So I might watch this one day, but it's probably going to be down the track when it comes out on Netflix or one day when I'm bored. From the Land of the Moon. Now this one. French, check. Romance, check. Vintage setting, check. Gorgeous cinematography. Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to be checking this one out when it's released. It looks pretty good. The Greatest Showman. Now, this one I'm a little bit torn on. It's got Hugh Jackman and Michelle Williams in it, who are two of my favourite actors, and it's a biopic of P.T. Barnum, the circus entertainer. Visually, it looks interesting, but I really hated the song that they used with the trailer. It completely ruined the tone of the movie and the message that I think they were trying to put across. I don't know what they were thinking with it, to be frank. So probably this will be a DVD movie for when it comes out. Probably not something that I would see in the theatres. Logan Lucky was the next one that I watched, and this looks quite hilarious. Adam Driver and Channing Tatum are in it, and it looks like they're in fine form in what appears to be some sort of crime caper. And just when you thought the trailer couldn't get more bonkers, a platinum blonde, buzz-cut Daniel Craig with a redneck accent comes out of nowhere and ups the crazy. It looks like it's going to be a good fun movie to watch. Also, one that looks pretty fun is called Ingrid Goes West. This stars Aubrey Plaza, who's another favourite actor of mine, and she's someone who plays the crazy lady very well, and it looks like she will be playing to form in this one. The Last Face stars Charlize Theron and Javier Bardem in this movie that appears to be about doctors in a war-torn part of Africa. I noticed watching the trailer that it also stars Jean Reno and is directed by Sean Penn, so this could be worth a look when it comes out as well. Jumanji. Now, up front, I was ready to dump on this. I have to be honest. I was not ready to like this because I don't think that Jumanji needs to be remade. But the trailer really caught my interest. I don't know if it was the combination of Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle and some laugh out loud moments that were included in the trailer, but it got me wondering if this movie might actually turn out alright. So as far as trailers goes, it's certainly done its job by grabbing my interest and making me think it might be worth watching. So if any of those movies sound like they might be up your alley, check out the show notes for links to the trailers. As for what Mrs. B and I have watched in the last week, there's one movie to talk about. When it was announced that there was going to be a remake of The Magnificent Seven, I was dubious. And then with the announcement of Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt, two actors that I'm not really a fan of, I was not disappointed when I missed seeing this in theatres. It was, however, added to Netflix in the last couple of weeks, and at a loose end on Friday night, Mrs. B and I decided to watch it, and I'm happy to report that it was actually quite entertaining. I still think it was an unnecessary remake, but maybe it needed to be updated for a modern audience and a younger generation. It's a simple and straightforward story, and the cast are given balanced screen time. It's got laughs, it's got action, it's got style. It's the perfect kind of movie for a Friday night in. So I was happy to be proved wrong on this occasion. On the book front, you might remember last week that I talked about Hellstorm by Thomas Goodrick. I've now finished reading it, and I maintain my stance from last week about this being the best book about World War II that I've read, and one of the best books overall that I've ever read. It clocks in at around 400 pages, and uses every single one of those to highlight the brutality of the war in its closing years and the few years following. As I noted last week, it does not hold back in the way that it describes the brutality meted out on the soldiers at the front, the civilians getting bombed, and then the rape, torture, and psychological abuse of the populace once the victorious troops rolled through. It was eye-opening and lends credence to the saying that there's no such thing as a good war, and definitely no clear good guys and bad guys when it comes to the wholesale slaughter of humans. It never glorifies the violence or tries to explain it away. A good portion of the book is straight up eyewitness testimony, often of the same events, and as such you get a very clear picture of just how bad it was. I think this is an important book, and it's very much worth the investment of time to get through it all. Now that I've finished that, I've started reading The Circle by Dave Eggers and also The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker, and I will talk about them in a bit more depth next week. I am enjoying both of them though, so they are off to a good start. Moving on now, let's check in with what's been happening on YouTube. Crispy Shorts had a great week of content this week. The highlight for me was the episode called Hot Girl vs. Zipline. Not because of the hot girl, his girlfriend, but because of the drone work in it. Crispy's drone has been out of action for a long time, and he's only got it back recently, so it was nice to see some aerial shots return to the vlog. Check him out for some good visuals, cool music, and a great sense of humour. Casey Neistat was also back on form this week. His video called Candace's Reaction to the France video started off with a really good explanation of planned obsolescence. Every now and then he will go off on a weird tangent like that, but it's always entertaining. I love that he's got a beloved pair of jeans that he keeps getting repaired. It's little things like this, and like when he handed Marlon the knife to open a package during mail time, and then proceeded to punch his own box to open it, and the banter between him and his wife Candace. It's things like these that always make me smile when watching his stuff. And then in his second post, he got quite personal when he shared a story of a Make-A-Wish recipient who had asked to meet Casey for his wish, but sadly passed away before it could happen. It was just a raw, honest moment from Casey, something that humanized him amongst all the crazy adventures and mayhem that he usually gets up to. So yes, good to have him back on form this week. He also made an appearance on Philip DeFranco's podcast, talking about a bunch of different things. Most ear-catching on that was some information on his venture with CNN, which sounds like it'll be a cool product when it starts airing. In fact, we got a further glimpse into this new show in his third release for the week. We even got to see some test footage that they had shot about click farms. It looks good, and it's definitely something that I'll check out when the channel goes live. On Mastodon this week, a fellow user posted a link to a video called Why YouTube Used to Prefer Quality by a creator called To Veritasium. It was an engaging peer into the cogs and gears of how YouTube works and how it's changed over the years. If you're interested in algorithms, how YouTube works, or content in general, then I recommend that you check it out. I've posted a link in the show notes. Leave me a comment with your thoughts about what this guy had to say. Another one I recommend you check out is a channel called Nylaw. This Australian gentleman creates and releases copyright-free music that is really good to listen to. He creates music in all types of genres, but some of his recent synth, Blade Runner, Stranger Things, Beyond the Black Rainbow efforts have been outstanding and have been playing on high rotation in our house. Check out his recent track called Demo Side for an excellent example of his high quality content. If you have any video or channel recommendations, please let me know in the comments and I will have a look at them. I'll check them out and see what they're like. Check the show notes for links to all the channels that I've talked about today as well. So to finish up, I want to talk about television. We continue to watch El Chapo and we're really enjoying it. We're now up to episode 6, I think it is, and the story's really moving along. Episode 4 in particular was very well done. What they did is they told the same story from 3 different points of view, and in each version revealed a key piece of information that was not included in the previous. They executed, pardon the pun, in a way that kept you guessing. It was a good mid-season change-up to the format that has helped to keep things interesting and at the same time helped to move the story along. Like I said last week, it's not as polished as Narcos, but it is much darker and it is holding our interest, and we'll no doubt see it through all 9 episodes. Well, that's all for this time. I hope you enjoyed it. Check the notes for links to the various things that I've covered today. I love yakking about all kinds of things, especially things that I've talked about today. So feel free to leave me a comment and let's keep that conversation going. To aid that conversation, I'm going to pose a question that came up on the Boogie Monster podcast this week. If the only Mexican food you could eat for the rest of your life was either burritos, tacos, or nachos, which would you choose? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm SierraKiloBravo, and this is what came out of me.